Welcome to Marketing Demystified, the podcast that connects the dots for business leaders to drive revenue through effective marketing strategy. We chat with marketing experts on different topics that will help you ramp up your revenue. We stream live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platforms. Marketing Demystified, the podcast, is presented to you by GrowGetter, your partner in growth marketing. And here's today's episode.
Hello, everyone. Are you ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered with practical tips to transform your marketing game? You are in the right place. Welcome to Marketing Demystified. I'm your host, Jenn Mancusi, CEO and co-founder of GrowGetter, your growth marketing partner. Now, if you're responsible for product marketing, you know that AI can help you work faster, maybe get some better results. The challenge is knowing exactly where it fits into your workflow, which tools are worth the hype, and what fundamentals you need to master before introducing AI. Today, I'm joined by Elle Grossenbacher, former product marketing leader at Cisco and Twilio. She built her strategic approach during her time as a strategy consultant at the market research firm Gartner, where she advised Fortune 100 companies on go-to-market strategy and customer journey. Elle also hosts the Product Marketing Adventures podcast, where she turns real case studies into practical playbooks. Today, Elle is sharing her approach to product marketing and where AI fits into her workflow. She's going to talk to us about which tools are worth the investment, what fundamentals you need to master first, and explain where to automate and where to stay hands-on. I'm so excited about this conversation. Welcome to the show, Elle.
Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. Glad we're getting started.
So excited to get started on this. I feel like those practical tips are really what people are missing when it comes to some of the AI hype and excitement. And there's a lot of really good that can come from it, but how to actually implement it is a big question mark a lot of people have.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's kick off with a little bit of foundation. Now, you've led product marketing at companies like Cisco and Twilio. How do you approach creating a product marketing strategy? And what separates really good product marketing from just okay product marketing?
Yeah, this is a really good place to start. And I'm actually going to start with your second question around what separates really great product marketing from just okay product marketing. And there are so many factors that can influence that. But in my experience and what I've seen in my personal career, as well as speaking to so many really outstanding product marketers through my podcast, really three trends come to mind. First is that really great product marketing is very purpose-driven, right? Like there's always a key goal in mind. And there's tactics. The tactics that you use are always in support of that specific goal. So that way the marketing work always ends up being more proactive rather than reactionary. And then the second trend that I've seen is that it's very collaborative. So stakeholders are brought in right from the beginning. They're very often part of identifying what is that big goal that we are supporting. And they are very thoughtfully incorporated throughout any work that product marketers do. And a symptom, like a quick test you can do, if you feel like you're very more like order taker or order taking as a product marketer, it doesn't mean that you're not a great product marketer. It means that you need to fix your environment so that you can deliver great product marketing work. And then the last trend is around being very customer centric, right? A great product marketing work is the customer behavior is very well researched. The customer insights are reflected in the storytelling and all of the environment. And basically anything that a product marketer does should be part of that foundation should be centered on customer insights. So really those are the big three trends that I've seen around delivering really great product marketing work. So I'm going to pause there because I forgot your first question. So remind me what that was.
I am going to go back to my first question, but I do want to actually pause on that for a second because I think the piece that you talked about collaboration is really important. And often I find that there is a misalignment or a misunderstanding as to what product marketing is. And that order taking kind of nature tends to come from that misunderstanding, right? Where people are thinking about product marketing means you're going to make me a really nice one pager that I'm going to send to my client.
Oh my God. Yes. Right. Exactly. Right.
I think
right.
you've heard that request before.
100%. Or here, make me a slide deck for the enterprise segment. Right. And you think that you're going to be doing all this great customer research and you're going to build this strategy and you're going to build this story. And then you go back and you deliver the deck and they're like, no, I just wanted you to literally make my slides pretty. So, and then you're like, wait, no.
So maybe that's actually where we should have started. Like what product marketing is not. It's not just making things look pretty. It really is rooted in that customer centric research, journey mapping, understanding the jobs to be done. And you really are a connector of product marketing, sales, and your customer within your organization.
Right, exactly. And I can tell you in my experience, I have had to educate my stakeholders on what product marketing does everywhere I've been. Everywhere. It's just part of the job is making sure that you have that alignment. And I think this is more common in smaller companies, but even at Cisco, this is very, very, very large company, I had to create our product marketing charter. And I said, this is what we're going to do. And I had to, before I even made it official, I went to all of my stakeholders and made sure that they understood what it meant, that they supported it. And I had some really key, not executive sponsors, but I would say peer stakeholder sponsors, if that makes sense. So that way, when I went to the VP, I could say, yes, this person already signed off on this. Yeah. And that made it so much easier for the VP to say, okay, great, I'm on board with it too.
Right. You've got your allies. We're all on the same page here. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
So back to the first question now.
Yes.
How do you approach creating a product marketing strategy to start with?
Yes. Okay. So the fun thing about that is the 3 trends that I just mentioned. That's really the foundation of how I have always built a product marketing strategy. Now, the strategy is obviously different depending on the context of your market and the context of your org. But I really start at those 3, those, you can call them fundamentals, aspects. It doesn't really matter. But the first one that I mentioned was, I think, collaboration. So again, on the collaboration note, I create a stakeholder map. That's the first thing I do when I start in any new organization and I'm creating the product marketing strategy. Who are the people that I'm going to be working with? Who are the people that are going to help me add value and who are going to make my job easier and who are going to help me drive a bigger impact? So I make my stakeholder map. I figure out, okay, what's their job? What do they care about? What metrics do, almost like a persona, but for my stakeholders, and figure out where they fit into the puzzle. And how we're going to work together, how I'm going to add value to their life, how they're going to add value to mine, and all of that good stuff. And then the second piece was being very purpose-driven. I might have gotten those out of order, but it doesn't matter because you need all of them. So second piece is being very purpose-driven. So this is something that really good product marketers, that again, in my experience, really good product marketers are good at this. They are good at not just understanding the product itself, but the business. They understand bigger picture. What is the company's mission? What is the company trying to do? What are the health metrics of the company? They have a good pulse on, is the company on track for revenue? Is the company, are the customers happy? Are customers adopting at the right rate or at a healthy rate, right? So good product marketers understand big picture vision. They understand business health metrics for the company, for the organization, and they're able to communicate with those stakeholders around what is our shared goal for the year, for the quarter, et cetera. And then how is my product marketing work going to help us as a big team, as a company, achieve that goal? And then we work backwards from there, obviously determining the tactics, et cetera. And then finally, we're being very customer centric. So making sure that again, from a product marketing strategy perspective, do we have the right customer insights? What customer insights do we need? And making sure that the product marketing strategy is informed by customer insights. Everything from the product adoption metrics to customer interviews, anecdotes from sales, everything in between. And all of that fits back into the tactics that we're going to drive to support the goal to be purpose driven. And then, of course, there's a feedback loop with all of our stakeholders to be collaborative. So I'll kind of pause there. I think I can give you a couple examples for some of that as well.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to hear examples for sure. I think that framework of, the purpose, getting everyone on the same page about what the objectives are is so key. And I love that you're kind of leaning into customer centricity. I think that's actually the thing that people forget is the responsibility of product marketers or of anybody in the organization, right? Like if everyone is coming from a place of really focusing on customer needs. And it's not to say, because, certainly in market research space, you hear the quote a lot of like, if Henry Ford asked people what they wanted, they said faster horses, right? It's not about asking people what they want and then building what they ask for. It's about understanding their problems and coming up with a proactive solution for them. And I don't think people think about product marketing as being responsible for that and that being the sort of core responsibility.
Right. Exactly. And I think it's most common what I've seen anyway, that product marketers or marketers in general forget that aspect typically more, and it makes sense when they're more junior in career. I mean, I did that when I was super fresh into my career. I was so focused on like, these are the benefits. This is what my product can do. And isn't it so great? And then it took me, a little bit of professional growing up to realize that like, oh, wait, no, I should keep it focused on, how my customer is evolving and how the world is evolving for them and what their context looks like. Totally. Let me give you like a quick example for all of this. I feel like my time at Twilio is such a good example of this because Twilio is just as a company by nature, they're very good at being customer centric. It was one of the company values was walking in the customer shoes. But just in terms of building the product marketing strategy in general, what I love about my Twilio example is that we were really good as a business of having the big company OKRs, right? Every company has, some kind of OKR like, goal at the end of or at the beginning of the year. And we were really good at coming together as a team on a regular basis. Like we met monthly with all of our key stakeholders to look back at, okay, this was the goal that we set out at the beginning, and how is everybody contributing to this? And do we all agree that each stakeholder, that is the right goal, that stakeholder, me included as a stakeholder, as a team member to this big shared goal, do we all agree that this is the right path to pursue, the right goal? And then we would report out to each other and hold each other accountable on the tactics that we were pursuing and the status and what new things we were experimenting with. And then again, everybody brought different customer insights to the table. We had salespeople bringing anecdotes. We had sales engineers also bringing more technical customer anecdotes. We had product managers bringing product data and customer usage data. And then we had product marketers coming and saying, well, here's what we're hearing from analysts. Here's what we're hearing from competitors. Here's what we're hearing from the customer interviews that we're doing. So we came to the table with all of this goodness and we shared it. We shared that reporting was that feedback loop that then came back into, and it determined the little changes that we would make to continue to press forward to the big goal that we set out at the beginning. So I just felt like that was a really good example of like building a product marketing strategy that was really collaborative, that was really purpose-driven and very customer-centric.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. That collaboration is so key too.
It really is.
Because you can't really demonstrate the success if you didn't agree as to what that was going to look like at the start or
Right.
kind of work together along the way. So I love that example. That's a really great one. And I wanted to, I mean, I think throughout this conversation, we're going to talk more about customer centricity because I think there's a lot of
Always.
pushback sometimes. Like when you said, oh, Twilio is just a very customer centric organization at its core. Not
Yeah.
everyone listening out there is in an organically customer centric organization. So,
Yes, I can share actually in contrast to that,
yeah,
my time at Cisco, which I'm not saying Cisco's not customer centric.
sure.
They very much are. We have had a massive, a whole customer marketing team. There are customer
Mhm.
advisory boards. Customers were very much part of, product strategic decision making and all of that. But for product marketers, it was just because the size of the company, and this is where the size of your company and the market size, like all of that determines how your product organization is set up, how your product marketing organization is set up, like the role of a product marketer, all of that plays such a key part in determining what kind of product marketing work you do. But at Cisco, we it was so much harder to talk to customers at Cisco than it was at Twilio. At Twilio, it was just a smaller organization, so it wasn't as complex. So it was much easier for me to log into our CRM and to do a quick filter to find the customers that I want to talk to or the prospects and to do win-loss interviews. It was just much harder to accomplish at Cisco. So I found myself doing a lot of that, like the collaboration lever that's the only thing that I could control. So I had to push forward through that, my stakeholders. I had to find in the org. I felt like I was an internal, like, private investigator because I'd be trying to go through and be like, okay, who owns this account? I need to figure out like who has had a role and to interview that. Then that person would send me to this person and, Sally would send me to Tom. And I'd be like, constantly moving through this maze of internal people just to try to get some information about the customer, about their context, about the problems they were facing, so that could then come back and inform our storytelling, our product, strategy direction, and all of that. So it's definitely the day-to-day work of a product marketer can look really different depending on, the size of your org. And sometimes it's much easier to be customer centric, and sometimes you really have to persevere.
But there are ways. Clearly, you just have to be resourceful.
Yes. Totally. Yes.
Amazing. Well, I want to talk. We are going to get to AI as promised. Don't worry, everyone.
Of course.
But before we do, how do you approach product positioning and messaging? And how do you think about the think, feel, do framework as part of that process?
Yes. Okay. So messaging and positioning are different but related. I think about positioning as, really simply put, how you position your product in the context of the customer's world. So how does your product fit? And again, you'll notice a trend here in the customer's world. Mm-hmm. So it's doing a little bit of foundation research on what does the customer's context look like? What does the market look like? And how does your product fit into that relative to what they see and feel around them? In a nutshell, again, I'm probably oversimplifying it, but that's how I think about positioning. Now, messaging is telling your product's story. And that's where I've always used the Think, Feel, Do framework. I first learned about Think, Feel, Do when I was in grad school, getting my MBA. And for those of you who may not know, the Think, Feel, Do framework is something that you can apply to better understand your customer throughout the entire customer journey. So the think part of that is answering a few questions around, like, what is the customer currently cognitively processing? Like, what are their beliefs? What questions are they asking? What objections do they have? And then what are they feeling right now? Are they fearful? Are they excited? Like, do they have a sense of urgency? Are they a little skeptic? Like, what are they feeling in this moment? And then, of course, the do is, what action should they take next? And again, that's Think, Feel, Do framework. You don't do it just once. You do it throughout the entire customer journey. because that customer's context is going to change throughout the customer journey. In the very beginning, maybe they don't even realize that they have a problem, versus at the very end, they're trying to decide, should they actually buy your product or not? So that think, feel, do is going to inform all of the content and campaigns and the messaging and the story about your product that you're going to tell to the customer throughout the whole journey. Now, I'm not saying you have to do it again and again and again. I would pick some key parts of the customer journey, or certainly of the marketing funnel, to figure out where you need to do this and what types of content and campaigns you need to do to continue to pull the customer through the funnel, so to speak.
Yeah. I love this framework. And, when I first started learning how to create customer journey maps and was introduced to Think, Feel, Do, one of the things that I loved was, sort of reframing the milestones of those different journey stages into success metrics that the customer cares about.
I love that.
Love, right? And it was just a tiny tweak, because I think a lot of people are maybe familiar with customer journey mapping. Maybe you might even be familiar with Think, Feel, Do, but your milestones become like a purchase or an interaction with a particular piece of content or something like that that is very business focused. This is what success looks like for me as the business. But tweaking that and reframing that, this I learned from Gia Laudy, who is, a great product marketing expert. And she is the one who told me, no, switch that around and make it, what does success look like for someone who is moving through that journey? So is it that they feel differently? Is it that they take an action that demonstrates they've got a little more comfort with whatever you're teaching them? But thinking about the Think, Feel, Do is very much about the customer, right? And that's very client centric. The success metrics should be as well.
I love that. And the other thing, I'm so excited to try this next time. But the other thing that I would do, just to continue moving in that guidance that you just gave, I would totally use those metrics again from the customer's perspective. What are their success metrics? Again, thinking of pulling them through the funnel. It's almost like validating their decision, the action that they just took. If you validate it then with a success metric of okay, let's say that I'm just making this up, but let's say that you were trying to get a customer to use some new feature in your platform, and you've been giving them all kinds of marketing content, and then they do it, and they use the feature that you're trying to make them do, and then you validate it with a some kind of success metric of you were able to achieve X because you just did this. So giving them that validation, I think, because then it establishes more trust in their relationship with you as well.
I love that.
So maybe they'd be then more receptive to even more, communication and content and engagement that you want to have with them in the next stage of the journey. So I love that idea.
That's a great idea. Yeah. And to sort of make them a part of you're mapping their journey and you're looking at all of those stages and their success, bring them into the process a little bit.
Yeah,
maybe ask them. That's a great moment to, pop up a survey and ask for their feedback, or to say, hey, congrats, you just did this thing. This is what value it provided to you. Hope that's what you experienced, kind of thing. I think there's some some platforms out there that do a really good job of that. Canva is an obvious one. They celebrate milestones really well. And Asana too, every time you check off a task in Asana, there's confetti. It's such a big deal, right? The most basic experience in the platform.
TurboTax is like that too. Anyone who's doing their taxes right now.
Everyone is. Hopefully you are doing your taxes right now. If not,
or you already did them. Yeah.
File your extensions this week. Anyways, we're off topic, but yes, I love that. I think, it's just another way to kind of make sure you are bringing the customer along with you, and not just creating the journey that you want for them, but actually creating the journey that's going to be the most valuable.
Yes. Yes. I like to think about it as the right message at the right time. Like when you do the exercise of think, feel, do, you're giving yourself as a product marketer or a marketer in general, because think, feel, do can be applied to any kind of campaign, but it's validating for yourself and giving yourself the confidence that you're giving them the right message at the right time, like their readiness in the journey and willingness to participate and receive the information. So totally agree.
Amazing. Yeah. If you need convincing on why to do a customer journey map to begin with, I think we might have another episode on that. I will dig it up for all of you and put it in the show notes. But please, if you're not mapping your customer journey and you're listening to this episode and all this exciting stuff, this is what you're going to get out of it, and be able to, really increase your conversion rates and keep people around longer and keep them happy. That's the goal.
Yep.
So let's get into some of this AI stuff. How should product marketers specifically be thinking about using AI for whether it's go-to-market, or where's AI adding the most value that you're seeing right now?
So many different ways. And part of the fun part of all of this right now is a lot of product marketers are frankly just still experimenting with AI. Yeah. So this is the good news with this is that you're not too late if you have not yet started to experiment with AI. But it is moving very fast. Mm. So what I will say is that maybe 6 to 8 months ago, I would say like most of the PMMs that I would engage with, they'd be using some kind of generative AI tool, whether that was, Perplexity, Claude, ChatGPT. They'd be using some kind of Gen AI tool to write copy. Sometimes that would end up being really bad copy. So sometimes, with AI, it's, what you get out of it is very dependent on what you put into it. And that's very evident in, the output that you would get. Now we're all at a point where there are strong suggestions when someone has used AI for copy. So that's kind of, I would say is, I don't want to say average player with AI, but that's just what I've seen most often. Now, fast forward to now, we are so much more sophisticated with the AI tools where we're not just using AI to come up with a spin up fast messaging or, quick blog post or something. Now we're seeing more entire agents that are able to engage with various other apps and platforms to actually pull off like a workflow, something that's very repeatable, something that you can keep going back to and enriching. So that's certainly something, that I'm seeing more of now, but it's still very much in experimentation mode right now. Thing that is coming a little bit more like baseline adoption is using something like Notebook LM to add things like customer call transcripts, customer interview transcripts. I personally I use it for my podcast, even like upload my podcast transcripts to pull out insights into like trends that you're seeing across, large data sets. And then it's just like a fast way to run an analysis. So I guess at a high level, like what I'm seeing in general across product marketing is we're still, I think, in experimentation mode, but it's moving quickly. And you are the really, really good PMMs they're by nature, they are experimenters. So whether there's AI existing or not, like they're experimenting. And then I want to use AI, but I don't quite trust it. I don't have time or I don't have the resources. They're still kind of like, at least I'll use something like ChatGPT. And then those who are going to end up being left behind, they're not using anything at all. And they're still running old playbooks and, they're not making time to at least expose themselves to some of these newer AI tools. Like, again, like very broadly speaking, that's what I'm seeing in the product marketing world. We can get into like a specific, use case, like a product launch or something too, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I think we should talk about a use case. I'm curious before we get into that, like when you think about experimenting with AI, I guess like what are some of the things that you would think about or recommend or guardrails to consider, because
Yes.
there are so many tools out there, and
So many.
when you're dealing with customer data,
Mm-hmm.
you want to be cautious about where you're putting that. I guess, yeah. How do you think about like running a proper experiment?
Yes, I love that question, and it's a really great point. And something that something that I've always told people whenever I'm encouraging, to experiment with AI. Never, 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 never upload or add proprietary information into any AI tool or personally identifying information for any customers or
Mm,
anything, unless, big caveat, unless it is a like company locked down white labeled version. So for
mhm,
example, at Cisco, we had I think it was literally ChatGPT that was owned, quote unquote, by Cisco. So we were allowed to upload proprietary documents,
mhm,
product launch information that wasn't yet public, like non-publicly available information. We could upload, big customer data sets because Cisco owned, and how it was like super secure, super locked down, super private. So with those caveats, otherwise never, 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 never do it because you could get in a lot of legal trouble. So
yeah.
don't do it. It's not worth it. Um, so definitely with those guardrails in mind, but I'd say a good place to start for experimenting, if you want to jump straight into experimenting with something for your particular, like more business related thing, like think about a task that you have that you have to do it often, but it's very time consuming and maybe a little bit cumbersome. And then you can use something like Claude to help build a repeatable framework, so that you can keep going back and like using the same workflow that you built one time in Claude, and you can keep going back to it every time to get new outputs.
Mm,
So that's a way that I would think about it, is like look at your project list, look at the tasks that you have that are a little mundane or take up a lot of time, and then just see if you could, okay, well, can I go into Claude or something
mm,
similar and build, some kind of workflow that can do this part for me to take the time away. A good example of that would be like to analyze customer interview information, or you can upload not even just interviews but all kinds of customer insights, everything from customer support tickets, just give it everything to try to do some of that analysis for you. That would typically take weeks and weeks, and you can cut it down to, I don't know, a couple hours less from
yeah.
end
What
to
a
end.
difference. Yeah. Yeah, great advice. And
Yeah.
yeah, improving the efficiency. Some of the ideas you mentioned in the beginning about analyzing customer calls and stuff like that is hugely
Yeah.
valuable. But yeah, let's talk about a product launch. Where does AI fit into the stages of a product launch?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we could probably do an entire episode on just this alone.
Right.
But so I'm gonna like keep this a little bit abridged. So if you think about maybe pre-launch of a product, the types of things that a product marketer would need to do would be some kind of market research, some kind of customer research, and all of that would fit into the messaging, the positioning, the story that you're going to create, the channels that you're going to use to launch the product. So again, you'll probably see a lot of PMMs do something like go to ChatGPT or similar tool and just like ask some questions about their persona. That's not super advisable. I think
Mm,
we've all experienced, I'm sure it's been mentioned on your podcast before, around like hallucinations and,
mhm.
not necessarily getting the right information back. So just, it's not super advisable for that. You're probably just going to get some really average data. But I would say go back to, again, something like Notebook LM, using that to try to pull out nuggets from like maybe a beta. If you're, most products have a beta group, right? With a very specific set of customers who participated in that beta group, but pre-launch, right? Pre-product launch. So try to get some of those interviews that you've conducted or feedback that you've gotten from those customers, and then feed it into something like Notebook LM. Another tool, which I love, I'm not being paid for this, by the way, I promise. Like any of these tools that I mentioned, no one's paying me to say any of this. They're not sponsors or anything. So GetWise is a new-ish. They were founded like about 2 years ago, I think. They are they're a market research AI tool for product marketers, where they, on the back end, they have thousands of interviews that they've conducted with B2B buyers. And they're constantly doing more, right? So product marketers can go in and use this AI tool that's been trained on all of these thousands of B2B buyer interviews. And as a product marketer, then again, pre-launch, if I'm like, I haven't launched a product yet, but I'm in a hurry, I want to get some like market validation, I can go in and I can basically like, using this tool, I can filter, like describe like, okay, like this is my customer, this is my persona. And then like, get instant feedback on like, here's my messaging. What would my persona think about this? I'd get instant feedback on that. And it would tell me what of my messaging is working and not working. And then it would back that up with real like pull quotes from these interviews that they've conducted. And then I can click in and I can go in and read the full transcript of that interview. And I can even see like what segment of company the interviewer's from and all of that. I can see what industry they're from. It doesn't say who it is, but
sure,
gives me enough context to tell me how meaningful it would be. So that's like a really fast way to get close to real market validation on your messaging before you even launch. So those are some ways that I've seen like marketers use AI tools pre-launch of a product. And then if you look at like the actual post-launch, you can continue using something like GetWise to get like feedback on even web page copy, right? Like, or on campaign copy, or even like if you're doing an outbound campaign, you can get feedback on that. And then there's all kinds. I think we've kind of talked a lot about even, how marketers are using these other tools to put together entire campaigns, even on, on pulling customers through the funnel and being able to go back again, like you could go back to Claude and like build out a workflow and try to spin out campaign elements that would help you then pull through. On that note, you could even use Claude to, again, like thinking back to a product launch at a company like Cisco, right? Where you have like a ton of stakeholders. I've thousands of partners who are reselling my product. I have thousands of sellers. I have the analyst firms. I have internal marketers who are going to take my messaging and then fit it into their campaigns. I have my immediate customers. I've got all these different audiences that need to receive my messaging for my story. I can build like a quick workflow or an agent in Claude, and I can basically feed it the information that it would need, but then it can give me the messaging that's my story, but like for each of those specific audiences in a matter of minutes, right? That would normally take me way longer than that. So again, like just as an example, like that's the kind of thing that you can do throughout a product launch to help expedite these, things that a product marketer would normally have to do that would take a long, long time. And you can now do it in minutes.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Like, it's like a translator almost.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Not
Yes,
translating
100%.
it into another language, but just translate it into something that my salesperson's going to care about, or my account manager is going to care about, or my CFO is going to care about.
Right.
And what do they how do I need to word this in a way that they're
Yes.
going to adopt it? Because that internal adoption is that collaboration piece you were talking about.
Exactly. Or even sometimes not sometimes, usually product marketers, you have segments, right? You have market segments. Some of those segments are enterprise buyers. Some of them it's industry segments. So you have healthcare versus retail, and just the way that they receive the messaging about your product is going to be different. You can build an agent to build that messaging for you, again, based on your original story that you wrote, but it will put those flavors to it in a way, like just making it so much faster for you. So you don't have to do it yourself.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Yeah. And maybe it will identify some areas you hadn't thought about too, as you're creating that content. And I love the sort of gut checking the messaging and sort of doing that. I think that research historically maybe has taken a long time, or maybe is harder to find the right people, or maybe is expensive, or fill in the blank, right? And
yes,
it's been, I think, become a lot more accessible, especially for smaller companies. I think the bigger enterprise businesses have big research teams and research budgets and have access.
Well, you'd be surprised, but yes.
Well, I know, I have seen.
Yes,
but
yes.
certainly a smaller startup firm, or
100%.
If you don't have a big research budget and you still want to iterate and you still want to bring in the customer voice, it's a lot easier to do that with some of the tools you mentioned.
That is such a great point about some of these AI tools, making it more accessible for smaller companies, lean marketing teams with leaner budgets. Yeah. Product marketing, which is notorious for having close to no budget, to get access to some of the research that would typically cost thousands of dollars.
Totally. Yes. Now, I think you've already touched on some of these, but I want to be really specific about some of the tools that are really worth the investment, in your opinion. So what are some that you're seeing that are working really well, that people out there who are considering should try to experiment with?
Right. Okay. Really great call. Again, the AI tools landscape is evolving so freaking fast, so fast. So it feels like what I'm suggesting today is different from what I would have suggested 6 months ago. And so it's likely going to change again 6 months from now. So right now, what I would suggest product marketers, or really any marketer, but what I would suggest product marketers to do is to the top two that come to my mind for sure would be Claude Code, right? So try to set that up. It takes a couple hours to set up, just in terms of getting your lay of the land. So block off a couple of hours to do that. And try to find a repeatable workload to build a system. That's how you should think about something like Claude Code. And I think we've already talked about, a very practical example of that, right? And even you can do it with a project that you've recently already done. That way you already have a strong grasp of what the project looks like. So if you recently did maybe a voice of customer project, or even if you have a handful of sales transcripts, or call script transcripts, you could do something like that to try to build a workflow to see if you can get something going. So definitely Claude for sure. Claude Code, I'd say that's worth your investment right now. I think GetWise as a product marketer for sure, because GetWise just has that immediate access. You can get started with they have a free trial. I think it's for at least a month. So I would highly recommend just getting your hands on it and try to get some proof of concept, proof of value during that early 30 days so that you can go back to your budget holder, your CMO or whoever, to try to convince them to get it for you. And then I think Notebook LM, those three tools, again, assuming you're already using the generative AI tools, the Perplexities of the world, assuming you're already using those. And again, in a very privacy conscious way, you're not putting any PII, you're not putting any proprietary information in there. So those are the three tools that I would say are worth your investment today, right now. Those are the tools that I see most of my PMMs talking about. There's a couple others out there that I've heard, but these are the three most that get, I recently did this with my podcast. So I use Notebook LM for my podcast, just to try to pull out like themes and trends across product marketing. And when I asked Notebook LM, again, I've added all of my podcast transcripts into Notebook LM, and I've asked it, what are the top AI tools that my podcast guests have mentioned? And Notebook LM was one of the, it was, ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Notebook LM. Those were the most commonly mentioned tools. There were others that were mentioned as well, like Glean was an example. That's another example of a product that was mentioned. And in fact, so I asked my AI tool, I asked it like, what's most mentioned? And then I said, okay, now which ones have had the most business impact? Those are different, because maybe the ones that have had most business impact may not necessarily have been mentioned most often. So the ones with most business impact have been Glean. So Glean that's Glean, Glean, Notebook LM, and then building out custom GPTs. Those have been the ones driving most business impact. So I just thought that was really like helpful little tidbit, from the product marketing community so far.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I'm going to have to do the same thing and see what my guests are recommending. But
right?
I think what's
so
really, it's so interesting. But what's funny is that, like, as you mentioned, like, this is accurate as of today, this moment in time. And the advancements that are happening in AI are rapid. So I had somebody on the show a month or two ago, Ethan King, who wrote a book on ChatGPT and was on the show saying, I think I'm converted. Like, I think I'm a Claude guy now, right?
Now he can write a Claude book.
Now he can write a Claude book. Exactly. So I think it's really important that all of these things, like you mentioned, this is about experimentation. It's about like seeing where you can find efficiency in your workflow and added value, and keep playing and keep experimenting, but all while being safe and protecting your data.
100%. Totally.
So can we talk about some more like product marketing examples in action? We talked about product launch, but any that are coming to mind for you as like real value adds where you can find some good like workflow efficiencies?
Yes. So my favorite, most recent example that I can think of, probably the best and most recent example. She's a good friend of mine. She's a very big voice on LinkedIn. She's been a guest on my podcast. Her name is Emily Pick. She is a product marketing leader at an edutech company called Docebo. And she did the coolest thing with AI. She did a message gap analysis in 2 hours. She didn't just do the analysis either. In 2 hours, she did the full analysis, and she had new messaging to recommend within 2 hours. Like, this is something that would normally take weeks of work to go and do an analysis to find the data to build the messaging. Like, it would take weeks, and she did it all in 2 hours. And so basically the story for how this went down is I think it was her CRO or CMO or, some C-level person came to her and said, hey, listen, we have this particular segment of our customers that they're closing lower to our benchmark. Like, for some reason, we're this segment of customers, they're not closing like the other segments are, like until closed one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the before times, like before AI, like this would take us weeks to figure out why isn't this segment of customers closing at a similar rate of all of our other segments. But what she did was she basically she was so sophisticated and savvy. She used an entire stack of AI tools. She didn't use just one. She didn't just be go and upload some documents into, some proprietary lockdown version of ChatGPT and be like, ask it some questions. What she did was far more sophisticated than that. So she used a Glean agent. So I mentioned Glean earlier. Glean is basically, I personally have never used it, but I've heard a lot about it and I've read a lot about it. So Glean is a tool that basically it's AI, but it helps you build agents and it connects to a bunch of other tools that you use. And so I think it's worth noting that she didn't necessarily build that Glean agent. She used an internal role. I think they're called like outbound engineers. And that too is a trend that I've seen a lot more now. This like outbound engineer or like go-to-market engineer. Like I've seen these roles just start to emerge. And basically their job is to build agents for like marketing and sales. Like they use these sophisticated tools like Glean, and they can build an agent for you like on the spot. Yeah. And so she had her team like build this Glean agent, and that basically would like pull like 6 months worth of like NPS data, like NPS scores, to really like pinpoint exactly like, okay, well, like when did this start happening? Based on NPS scores. And then she used like a different, like they built this internal they built this internal tool called like an audience insight agent that would basically like run these like natural language queries across like all of their Gong calls, right? To see exactly like what the segment was asking for, and like during like demos and like product conversations, and like where their expectations were not being met. And I think that is like such a cool tool. So cool that you can do that. Like, I don't think I am quite AI savvy enough to figure out how to do that. So that's why I'm going to say that for like a second or third time. She had someone very skilled to build these agents for her. Internally though, it's like an actual person. Internally. And then she used Perplexity to then like, she got all this like, this feedback from these agents, these AI agents. And then she used Perplexity to like scan through like the industry landscape, like, and she looked at things like influencers and forums and Reddit and things like that to get, okay, well, like, what does the public community say about our industry? And like, how does that jiving with what these agents are giving me? And then she built a custom GPT and she was able to pinpoint like the exact disconnect between where the messaging was falling short and what the customers were expecting. So then she was able to make that tweak. And by like mid-afternoon, this was like a Friday morning, get this like notification from your, I don't remember, CMO, CRO. Hey, something's not right. And then be like, I found it. Here's what's not working. Here's the data to prove it. And here's the new messaging. Let's go test.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It's crazy. And I feel like it's not just about the efficiency gains, because it's in olden days, let's say pre-generative AI, pre-building these tools, people are just not investing the time to make that discovery because it takes so much time.
It does,
so
right.
The old decision is, oh, this segment isn't converting at the same rate as our others. They must not be a good fit. We're going to we're going to deprioritize them, and we're going to focus
100%.
Right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden there's new revenue opportunity because you created this efficiency. I love that. It's not that they weren't a good fit, which is probably the decision that was made previously, because it would have taken weeks to do that message gap analysis. So let's move on from what's not working and focus on the segments that are. But now there's all this new revenue opportunity because you were able to find that one tweak in messaging that was going to make a difference potentially. I mean, you're going to test it, right, and figure out next steps there. But it's not just about the value in that case study that you're describing. It's not like, oh, we saved a bunch of time. It's we did something we weren't going to invest the time in doing.
Yes. I love that insight. I think you're absolutely right. And even now, even today, those who are not experimenting with AI, to know that they can come to that kind of discovery, they're still stuck in those behind times, and they're leaving money on the table because they're not pursuing the tools that can help them pick it up and grab it.
Right. Amazing. I love that
Yeah.
story. Thank you for sharing that.
So
We're going to
good.
have to
I
try to
know.
get her on the show to talk about
Shout
this.
out Emily Pick. She's amazing.
Shout
I'll
out.
totally make an intro. She's so great.
Love it. I love it. All right. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear any kind of fundamentals or like non-negotiables for product marketers that are wanting to experiment with AI. What should you get really good at before leaning on those tools?
Yes. Okay. Great question. And actually a question that I've been getting a lot, as I've been, mentoring junior PMMs or those who are trying to break into product marketing. It's interesting because it's like, it is a guaranteed question you're going to get in an interview. How are you using AI? So I would say my advice, what I've always told people is to make sure you master your craft so that you know how AI can 10x your value. And I'm going to go back to my example with Emily Pick. Emily Pick is she has mastered the product marketing craft. She is also a very good experimenter and she's savvy so that she's like still experimenting with AI. But because she has mastered her craft as a product marketer, she knew that, if I do the work to go and investigate why this segment isn't performing, then I'm going to find an answer, not just, hey, let's move on and like focus on these other segments. So she mastered her craft first so that she knew how AI can 10x her value. So that means know how to do messaging and positioning. Know how to apply. There's so many frameworks out there, so many, and some are better than others. And you have to find the one that fits for you and works really well with just how you mentally think and operate. But know how to apply the frameworks, and do market research. Go do a little bit on your own. Like do some of your own interview analysis just so you know kind of what to spot check for, because AI does hallucinate. I think in a matter of time it'll get better, but I don't know by when. But I would just know kind of how to do some of that critical thinking on your own first, so that then when you do upload transcripts to Notebook LM, you know what to ask because you've done the analysis yourself and you know what you're looking for in an analysis. So if you've mastered the craft, then you know how AI can, I'm just going to keep saying 10x your own value. So yeah, do marketing, do messaging and positioning from scratch a few times first, just so you feel like you can do it like, from like you can write your name backwards, right? Like make sure you know it really, really well. And then just keep experimenting with AI. You're not behind. And I think if you push yourself to experiment, making sure that anything that you have mastered in product marketing, you don't have to master all of product marketing, but pick one thing that you're doing really, really well. That's a good time to start then introducing AI as an experiment into your workflow.
That's such great advice. I think that's, master your craft first. So you know what to look for and you know where the most value can come. This is such a great conversation. There were so many like topic areas where I was like, we could go down a very long rabbit hole here. So maybe a follow-up conversation is in our future. But thank you so much for joining us and sharing those valuable insights with us on how we can leverage AI for product marketing.
Of course. Thank you, Jen. This was such a fun conversation. It's been so much fun and such an honor to be on your show.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Please, everybody, make sure you're following Elle on LinkedIn. Check out her podcast, Product Marketing Adventures. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to Marketing Demystified wherever you get your podcasts and join us next time for more conversations that help demystify the complex